The morning sunlight spilled lazily through the kitchen window, golden streaks stretching across the wooden floor, warming the room with a gentle glow. A soft breeze slipped through the cracked window, carrying the faint scent of blooming jasmine from the garden outside. Everything felt ordinary, peaceful, calm. Emma sat at the small oak table, cradling her steaming mug of coffee between her hands. She watched the garden quietly. Birds flitted from branch to branch, their wings catching the light in a brief shimmer. The wind made the flowers sway. The world felt soft, slow, safe. She took a sip, closed her eyes, and let herself breathe in the serenity of the morning. It was the kind of calm that made you almost forget the outside world. Almost. Then a shuffle. A faint, uneven sound from the corner of the room. Emma's eyes flicked toward it. Her heart gave a tiny skip. She set down her mug, curiosity stirring. From behind the kitchen island, a small, scruffy dog emerged, matted fur, eyes too large for his fragile face. He moved slowly, cautiously, his small paws making barely a sound on the floor. His nose twitched, sniffing the air as if taking everything in, and then he paused. He seemed to measure her presence, assess if she was safe, if she could be trusted. Softly, deliberately, he nudged the corner of her shoe with a tiny paw. Emma froze. Her heart skipped another beat. There was something in that small, hesitant gesture, something so deliberate, so gentle, that it felt almost human. She knelt on the floor, extending a hand toward him. He tilted his head, large eyes shimmering with quiet understanding. A soft whine escaped him, almost like a question. He stepped closer, slow, careful, deliberate. Emma's breath caught. She reached out and brushed a stray tuft of fur from his shoulder. For a fleeting moment, the world outside the kitchen seemed to vanish. It was just her, and this trembling, fragile creature. Then, he froze. Ears perked, body still, gaze fixed on a distant shadow outside the window. A soft growl of awareness rumbled from deep in him. Emma followed his eyes, curiosity threading through her calm. What the dog sensed would change everything. She whispered softly, "You're safe here. I promise." But even as she spoke, a quiet understanding seemed to pass between them. Something important was coming. Something neither of them fully understood yet. He nudged her hand again, small, tender, insistent. A fragile connection had begun. A quiet bond that would slowly, quietly transform both of their lives. Emma smiled gently. "Well, I guess we're both a little lonely, huh?" The dog blinked slowly, as if in agreement, before curling slightly against her side. The morning sun stretched further into the kitchen. Outside, the birds continued their song. Inside, a new rhythm had begun. Emma poured herself another sip of coffee, and watched the dog settle by the rug. Every small movement he made, every tentative glance, carried meaning. She noticed how he flinched slightly at sudden sounds, how he paused to sniff the air when a car passed, how his eyes lingered on her longer than necessary. There was something about him, something quietly profound. As she knelt beside him, brushing a stray tuft of fur again, she felt an unusual warmth spreading through her chest, a sense of responsibility, yes, but also of hope. Hope that maybe she could help him, and perhaps he could help her too. The dog shifted slightly, pressing closer, nudging her hand again. Emma laughed softly, a quiet, gentle sound. All right. I get it. You're staying, little one." They remained like that for a while, the morning stretching out around them in calm, golden light. Every soft breath, every quiet motion, felt like a promise, a beginning. A story quietly unfolding. Emma whispered again, more to herself than to him, "I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but for today, we're here together." The dog's ears flicked toward her voice, eyes glimmering with what felt like understanding. She could almost feel his heartbeat syncing with hers, slow, steady, comforting. It wasn't just adoption. Not yet. It was a connection, fragile, tender, but undeniably real. And as the sun climbed higher in the sky, Emma realized, for the first time in a long while, that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone. Outside, the world went about its ordinary rhythm. Inside, a new story quietly began. One of trust, of healing, of a bond neither of them expected, a bond that would quietly, profoundly change everything. The morning after the dog first arrived felt different. The sun spilled its golden light across the kitchen, warmer this time, as if the house itself had noticed the small, scrappy addition. Emma moved quietly, careful not to startle him. The dog was awake before her, small, bright eyes following her every move. He padded softly across the wooden floor, sniffing at the corners, checking the shadows, and then he returned to her side. It was a gentle routine, a silent rhythm that neither of them had yet named, but both understood. Emma poured herself coffee again, and the dog nudged her hand as she lifted the mug. She smiled softly. "You want a sip?" He blinked, hesitant, then stepped closer, and she laughed quietly, withdrawing before he could taste. All right, maybe not today." After breakfast, she decided to explore the small garden behind the house. The dog followed silently, ears alert, tail low but wagging ever so slightly. Every step he took was careful, deliberate, almost like he was showing her a new way of seeing the world. He paused at a patch of wildflowers, sniffed the air, tilted his head. Emma crouched beside him. "What is it?" she whispered. He pressed a paw gently against the earth, then looked back at her, eyes glimmering with something she couldn't name. It was a small gesture, simple, almost ordinary, yet it carried intention, meaning. The dog's intuition was becoming clear. He noticed details she had never paid attention to, the fragile petals drooping under the morning dew, the way sunlight hit the corners of the fence, even the quiet rustle of leaves signaling a gentle breeze. Emma realized she had been rushing, living so fast, that she had forgotten the small things. "Thank you," she whispered to him. The dog tilted his head, ears flicking, then nudged her hand with a soft paw. A small smile spread across her face. "I think we understand each other, in our own way." They walked slowly through the garden, the dog pausing at familiar spots, sniffing, listening, waiting, guiding. When Emma bent down to tie her shoelace, he nudged her gently toward the sunlit patch of grass, as if saying, "Look here, notice this." She laughed softly. "You're a strange little teacher, aren't you?" The dog's eyes seemed to shine brighter, alert, connected, purposeful. It wasn't just companionship. It was guidance, quiet, gentle, subtle. Back inside, Emma noticed how he reacted to ordinary things with extraordinary sensitivity. A sudden creak in the floor made him freeze, then glance at her, as if checking she was safe. When the wind rattled a window, he nudged her hand again, soft reassurance in each small movement. She realized she hadn't felt this seen, this cared for, in a long time. By midday, Emma found herself laughing quietly at his little quirks, the way he tilted his head when curious, how he would circle the rug before settling, how he seemed to sense her mood without words. It was comforting, gentle, almost magical. The day stretched slowly, softly, like honey dripping in sunlight. Each movement, each glance, each silent moment of connection built a subtle, unspoken trust. The dog's presence was not loud, not demanding, it was steady, calming, grounding. In the afternoon, Emma sat on the porch, notebook in hand, watching him explore the garden again. He paused by the small wooden bench, sniffed, then looked at her with a faint, expectant gaze. She tilted her head. "What is it?" The dog padded toward a patch of soil near the fence, pawing gently, digging lightly, then stopped and sat, eyes fixed on her. Emma bent closer, realizing a small wildflower had sprung up through the soil. "Is this what you wanted me to see?" she whispered, laughing softly. The dog tilted his head, small tail wagging. It was as if he had been waiting for her to notice, to appreciate, the quiet beauty she had almost overlooked. Evening arrived slowly, warm amber light spilling through the windows, dust motes dancing in the air, quiet moments stretching into calm. The dog curled at her feet, resting his head lightly on her shoes, a small, steady weight of presence. Emma ran her hand through his fur, soft, careful, reverent. "You're more than a dog, aren't you?" she murmured. He blinked slowly, almost knowingly, as if saying, "And so are you." Before bed, she looked out the window at the garden, the sun dipping behind the trees, shadows stretching longer. The dog nudged her hand one last time, soft, insistent, as if to remind her, notice the quiet, the small, the moments that matter. Emma realized then that this fragile, scrappy creature, the one she had thought she was rescuing, was quietly, profoundly, rescuing her too. As she closed the door to the night, soft lamplight spilling across the room, she felt a warmth deep in her chest, a fragile hope, a gentle anticipation for tomorrow. Because with him by her side, life felt different, richer, slower, more beautiful. And she knew, without saying it aloud, that this was only the beginning. The following morning carried the same soft golden light, yet it felt different, charged, almost, with quiet anticipation. Emma had begun to notice small patterns in the dog's behavior, tiny rhythms that hinted at intelligence beyond the ordinary. He waited by the door, paws neatly together, tail low but alert, eyes fixed on her. When she bent down to tie her shoelace, he nudged her hand gently, urging her to stand, then led her toward the garden gate. It wasn't commanding, not in the way she would expect. It was subtle, purposeful, intuitive. Emma followed, curious, and a small smile spread across her face. All right. I see you have a plan," she murmured. The dog blinked slowly, almost knowingly, before trotting ahead a few steps and pausing, looking back to make sure she was following. He led her to the side of the garden where the sunlight fell differently, warm and golden on a patch of wildflowers. He pawed at the soil gently, tilting his head, waiting for her to notice. Emma crouched down. "Is this something you want me to see?" The dog nudged a small cluster of blossoms with his nose. She laughed softly, a quiet warmth spreading in her chest. It wasn't just a plant, it was a reminder. A tiny, subtle nudge to notice the beauty that existed even in the smallest corners. After breakfast, Emma began observing him more closely. He had a way of pausing at certain spots in the house, sniffing the air, tilting his head, as if sensing something she couldn't. When the wind rattled a window frame, he would glance at her, waiting for a reaction, then settle, calm and deliberate. She realized she had been living so fast, barely noticing the world around her, that she had almost forgotten how to slow down, to see. By midday, she began testing her own curiosity, following his quiet guidance. If he paused by a corner, she would lean closer, notice details, dust motes dancing in the sunlight, faint scratches on the wooden floor, or the subtle sway of a curtain in the breeze. Each moment was small, quiet, but Emma felt a profound sense of connection growing. The dog's intuition seemed to extend beyond objects, beyond spaces. He responded to her mood with subtle gestures. A sigh of weariness from her would make him nudge her hand gently, as if to say, "I'm here." A faint smile would earn him a soft tail wag, a tilt of the head, almost proud. In the afternoon, Emma sat on the porch with a notebook, jotting down thoughts while the dog explored the garden at his own pace. He returned periodically, pressing a soft paw against her leg, a silent invitation to follow, to notice something new. When she leaned down, he nudged a small patch of soil where a tiny wildflower had sprouted, waiting for her to see it. "It's like you're showing me a new world," she whispered. The dog blinked slowly, eyes bright, as though acknowledging her words without needing them spoken aloud. Evening came, and the room was bathed in amber light, soft shadows stretched along the floor. The dog settled near her feet as she read quietly, occasionally lifting his head to glance toward the window, ears alert, eyes calm but focused. Emma felt a warmth she hadn't known in a long time, a quiet comfort in being seen, truly seen, by someone who didn't speak words but understood everything. Before bed, she walked him to the porch one last time. The night was calm, the air warm and soft. He paused at the same spots he had explored all day, sniffing, pausing, tilting his head, then looked back at her with eyes that seemed to ask, "Did you notice? Did you see what mattered?" Emma knelt beside him. "I think I'm starting to understand. You're teaching me patience, awareness, presence," she murmured. He pressed his head against her hand, steady, comforting, warm. It wasn't a teacher-student relationship, not exactly, but it was a gentle, unspoken guidance, a partnership in noticing the quiet truths of life. That night, Emma lay in bed, the dog curled at the foot. She reflected on the day, the small moments, the tiny nudges that had carried more meaning than words ever could. A deep sense of curiosity now threaded through her heart, a quiet wonder at the subtle, everyday beauty she had been missing. She realized the dog wasn't just her companion, he was opening her eyes, slowly, gently, to life itself. As she drifted to sleep, golden lamplight spilling across the room, she could hear the faint rhythm of his breathing, soft and steady, a quiet heartbeat of presence. She understood, in a way that didn't require words, that tomorrow would bring more discoveries, more gentle guidance, more of the unspoken bond growing between them. And in the quiet dark, she smiled, a fragile, warm anticipation settling in her chest. For the first time in years, she felt she was part of something larger, something profoundly, quietly meaningful, something she hadn't known she had been waiting for. The morning light filtered softly through the blinds, painting stripes of gold across the living room floor. Emma stirred her coffee slowly, watching the dog curl near the rug, eyes half closed yet alert. He was awake before her again, small ears flicking at each creak of the house, each subtle whisper of the wind. Their routines had begun to settle into a quiet rhythm. The dog moved with careful deliberation, never rushing, never demanding, but always present. Emma had started noticing the tiniest gestures, how he would press a paw lightly against her leg when she sat too long, how he tilted his head whenever she looked unsure, how he seemed to sense exactly when she needed comfort. By mid-morning, they were walking slowly through the garden. The sunlight had softened, casting warm, golden pools across the grass and flowers. The dog paused often, sniffing, tilting his head, then looked back at her, as if to say, "Follow me, notice this." Emma smiled quietly, realizing that she had begun to trust his subtle guidance, to let him lead her in small, unspoken ways. He nudged her toward a patch of daisies bending gently in the breeze. Emma crouched, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and whispered, "You always know what to show me, don't you?" The dog blinked slowly, tilting his head again, eyes bright, and settled beside her, small chest rising and falling with calm rhythm. They spent hours in quiet companionship, each movement filled with intention. When Emma paused to take a photo of the garden, he sat nearby, watching, alert, attentive, his presence a soft anchor in the world around her. Even when the wind picked up, rustling the leaves, he would glance at her, and then rest, a quiet reassurance that everything was all right. By afternoon, Emma began reading aloud softly, mostly to herself. The dog's ears perked at certain words, his head tilting in curiosity, then he would lay down again, eyes never leaving her. It was as though he was listening, understanding, absorbing the rhythm of her voice, the small hesitations, the subtle emotions behind the words. Emma laughed quietly at his little quirks, the way he would circle the rug before settling, the tilt of his head at every new sound, the careful pacing of his steps. "You're full of surprises," she murmured. He blinked slowly, almost knowingly, pressing his head lightly against her leg as if to confirm it. The evening came with the warm glow of amber light spilling across the walls. Emma found herself sitting on the porch, notebook in hand, while the dog explored the yard at his own deliberate pace. Every so often, he would return to her, pressing a paw gently against her leg, nudging her attention towards something small yet significant, a bird perched quietly on the fence, the sunlight hitting a single leaf just so, or the faint scent of jasmine carried by the breeze. He was teaching her something without words, to notice, to feel, to be present. It wasn't a lesson that could be written in a book, it was a rhythm, a connection, a trust built silently over hours and days. As night settled, Emma prepared for bed, letting the dog curl at her feet once more. She watched him, warm lamplight painting soft shadows across his small frame, and whispered softly, "You've changed my mornings, my days, my heart." He blinked slowly, resting his head against her shoes, calm, steady, unwavering. She realized how deeply she had come to rely on his presence, not out of need, but out of understanding. He was her companion, her anchor, her quiet teacher, and perhaps, in ways she didn't yet fully comprehend, her friend who could sense the unspoken parts of her heart. The room fell into a comfortable hush. Outside, the wind carried the gentle rustle of leaves, the faint call of a night bird, the world moving slowly, quietly, beautifully. Inside, Emma sat on the edge of the bed, watching the dog's chest rise and fall with soft, steady breaths, a reminder that some bonds were deeper than words could ever reach. And in that quiet, warm night, she felt it, the bond between them had grown stronger. It was subtle, gentle, but undeniable. Each glance, each touch, each small gesture of intuition had woven them together in a connection that was soft yet profound. Emma lay down, the dog curled beside her, and for the first time in a long time, she felt fully, completely at peace. With him by her side, every small moment of life felt brighter, fuller, more meaningful. And as she drifted into sleep, she whispered once more, softly, into the night, "You've become a part of me, and I don't think I'd have it any other way." The morning light seeped softly through the window, casting a golden haze across the living room. Emma stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, eyes drifting to the dog curled near the rug. He stretched slightly, paws reaching forward, then returned to his usual position, quiet, alert, patient. Over the past few days, she had noticed his subtle habits, the way he reacted to sounds, to movements, to changes in her mood. But today, there was something different, something almost wistful in his gaze. As she sat down, he nudged her hand gently, eyes flicking toward the corner of the room. Curious, Emma followed his gaze. A faint shadow lingered near the old armchair, a corner she rarely noticed. The dog padded over slowly, sniffing at a small, faded blanket draped there. He pressed his nose against it, then looked back at her with those large, knowing eyes. Emma leaned closer. "What is it, little one?" He nudged the blanket gently, paws soft against the fabric, as if inviting her to discover something hidden. Slowly, Emma lifted the blanket. Beneath it lay an old, worn dog collar, frayed and faded with time. Her heart tightened slightly. "Was this yours, before?" she whispered. The dog tilted his head, eyes steady, calm, yet filled with something unspoken. It was a small glimpse, a fragment of a past he could not speak aloud. A story of hardship, of waiting, of moments lost and moments longed for. And in that instant, Emma felt a deeper connection forming, not just to his presence, but to his life, his resilience, his quiet strength. She knelt beside him, brushing a stray tuft of fur from his shoulder. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" He blinked slowly, resting his head against her hand, almost like an affirmation. There was no sadness in his gesture, only a quiet acceptance, a calm understanding that some things were left unsaid. Throughout the morning, she noticed other subtle signs of his past. A slight flinch at sudden noises, a preference for corners where he could see the entire room, a lingering pause whenever someone approached unexpectedly. But alongside these shadows, there was warmth, trust, and a gentle resilience that drew her closer to him. By midday, Emma decided to take him for a walk, hoping the fresh air might ease the heaviness of her thoughts. The dog trotted beside her, ears perked, eyes bright yet calm, attentive to every step, every sound, every nuance in her movements. At a small park nearby, he paused under a tree, sniffing the air, tail low yet steady. Emma knelt beside him, brushing leaves from his fur. "It's all right, we're safe here," she whispered. He nudged her hand again, soft, insistent, leading her toward a sunlit patch of grass. A small cluster of flowers swayed gently in the breeze. Emma smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude for his guidance, for the subtle ways he taught her to notice beauty, to slow down, to care. They walked back home in quiet companionship. The golden afternoon light spilled across the streets, casting long shadows, painting the world in calm, gentle hues. The dog trotted beside her, alert yet relaxed, small steps deliberate, measured, purposeful. Once home, Emma noticed him pausing near the window, gazing outward, ears flicking, tail brushing softly against the floor. She knelt beside him. "What do you see?" she murmured. His eyes remained steady, attentive, almost as if he were remembering, or perhaps sensing something she could not yet understand. That evening, Emma sat on the porch, notebook in hand, while the dog explored the garden at his usual pace. He returned periodically, pressing a paw gently against her leg, nudging her attention towards small, almost ordinary things, a bird landing softly on the fence, sunlight catching a single leaf, the faint scent of jasmine drifting in the air. Each movement carried intention, meaning, a silent guidance she had grown to trust. As night fell, the warm lamplight spilling across the room, Emma reflected on the day. This small, scrappy creature, the one she had taken in thinking she was helping him, had quietly shown her more than she had anticipated. He was teaching her patience, awareness, trust, and the unspoken resilience of a heart that had known hardship yet still offered love. The dog curled at her feet as she prepared for bed. She whispered softly, brushing a tuft of fur from his head, "You've been through so much, and yet, here you are, teaching me to see the world differently." He blinked slowly, eyes soft, steady, unwavering, a gentle presence anchoring her thoughts. Emma climbed into bed, feeling a warmth deep in her chest, a quiet sense of gratitude. The bond between them had grown stronger, deeper, richer. It wasn't just companionship anymore, it was a shared rhythm, a silent understanding, a trust that transcended words. And as the night stretched quietly across the house, she realized something profound. This little dog, fragile, scrappy, and yet resilient, was not just part of her life. He was changing it, quietly, gently, with every small gesture, every subtle sign, every tender touch. She drifted into sleep with him curled near her feet. A soft, steady heartbeat of presence, a quiet reminder that sometimes the smallest, quietest creatures carried the greatest wisdom. And tomorrow, she knew, would bring more discoveries, more guidance, more of the gentle, unspoken bond growing between them. The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains, casting gentle stripes across the wooden floor. Emma stirred her coffee slowly, watching the dog settle near the rug, ears alert, eyes calm yet watchful. There was a quiet energy in the room today, a soft anticipation, almost imperceptible, but present. The dog rose, stretching his small frame, tail low but steady. He padded toward her, nudging her hand with a soft insistence. Emma followed his gaze, noticing a faint shadow on the floor near the hallway. He sniffed lightly, paused, then looked back at her, eyes bright, focused, expectant. It was a subtle, quiet nudge, a prompt to pay attention, to act. Emma knelt beside him. "What is it, little one?" she whispered. He pressed his nose gently against her hand, steady, insistent, guiding without words. As they moved down the hallway, Emma noticed the small, almost imperceptible signs, a faint clink of a glass from the kitchen, the soft rumble of her stomach, tiny things she might have ignored otherwise. The dog stopped near her desk, head tilting, tail brushing the floor in soft, measured movements. He nudged a small stack of papers, then looked back at her, eyes imploring, attentive. Emma knelt, brushing the papers aside. "You're showing me something?" she murmured. He nudged her hand again, soft, deliberate, then sat, gaze fixed, waiting. And then it clicked. A small wave of understanding washed over her. The dog's behavior wasn't random, every pause, every nudge, every tilt of the head carried intention, guidance, a subtle warning she hadn't yet realized. Earlier that week, Emma had noticed faint dizziness, moments of weakness she'd brushed off. Now, standing in the soft golden light, she realized the dog had been responding to those moments, nudging her, guiding her, ensuring she paid attention to herself, to her body, to her needs. It was not just intuition, it was awareness, a quiet, life-saving presence she had not fully recognized until now. A soft sigh escaped her lips. "You've been protecting me, haven't you?" The dog blinked slowly, tail flicking slightly, eyes steady, calm, affirming in his quiet way. The afternoon stretched slowly, warm sunlight spilling across the garden. Emma and the dog walked gently among the flowers, each step measured, deliberate, almost meditative. He paused often, sniffing the air, tilting his head, then looking back to ensure she was following. Every action carried meaning, every gesture was a lesson in awareness, in noticing the subtle, in valuing life's quiet signals. She marveled at the small ways he guided her, toward fresh air, toward rest, toward moments of stillness she had long forgotten. It was gentle, subtle, life-affirming. She realized then that his presence was not just comforting, it was essential. By evening, the golden lamplight spilled across the living room, painting long shadows along the floor. Emma sat on the couch, notebook in hand, reflecting on the day, on the small nudges, the soft guidance, the life-saving presence she had begun to understand. The dog lay beside her, small head resting gently on her feet, eyes flicking toward her occasionally, steady, alert, intentional. She reached down, brushing a hand through his fur. "I didn't know you were watching, looking out for me like this," she murmured. He blinked slowly, calm, steady, affirming without words. It was not fear, not urgency, only awareness, subtle, quiet, persistent, guiding her toward care, toward attention, toward life. Night settled softly over the house, warm lamplight spilling across the room, shadows stretching long and calm. The dog curled at her side as she prepared for bed, his breathing slow, steady, comforting. Emma lay down, hand resting on his small, warm frame, heart filled with quiet gratitude, awe, and a deep, peaceful understanding. He had not just been a companion. He had been a guardian, attentive, perceptive, intuitive. And though she had not recognized it at first, his quiet presence had been guiding her, gently saving her, in ways she would only fully realize later. As she drifted to sleep, golden light fading outside, she whispered softly, almost to herself, "You've changed everything," quietly, gently, "and I can't thank you enough." And in the soft night, she felt it, an unspoken promise between them. A bond deeper than words, quiet, subtle, yet undeniably profound. She slept with a warmth in her chest, the dog curled at her side, a heartbeat of presence, a life quietly, gently guiding her toward the light. The next morning carried a soft hush, sunlight spilling like liquid gold across the living room floor. Emma stirred her coffee slowly, eyes drifting toward the dog curled near the rug. He stretched slightly, ears flicking, alert, focused, aware of every subtle movement she made. The days of quiet guidance had formed a rhythm between them, a bond neither forced nor hurried, built on trust, patience, and quiet intuition. Today, that bond felt heavier, deeper, charged with meaning Emma could not yet name. The dog rose and padded toward her, soft paws on the wooden floor, tail low, deliberate, eye steady. He nudged her hand gently, then glanced toward the hallway, as if insisting she follow. Emma followed silently, curiosity threading through her calm. He led her toward the small side room, a place she had hardly noticed before, sunlight spilling softly through the window, dust motes floating in lazy swirls. He paused at the center, tilting his head, ears flicking, waiting, eyes imploring. Emma knelt beside him. "What is it?" she whispered. The dog pressed his nose gently against her hand, then looked back, calm, insistent, as if telling her to look, to notice, to understand. Her gaze fell on a small, folded envelope tucked beneath the chair. She picked it up, hands trembling slightly. The handwriting was familiar, yet she could not place it at first. Inside was a note, faded, careful, a message left long ago. Her eyes scanned the words. "To the one who cares, the one who listens, the one who notices. Some hearts need gentle guidance, some lives need quiet guardians. Pay attention. Trust the unseen. Love deeply." Emma's breath caught. She looked at the dog, whose eyes were steady, calm, aware, almost knowing. It was then she understood. He had been more than intuition, more than comfort. He had been guiding her, protecting her, in subtle, invisible ways she had not yet fully comprehended. Every nudge, every pause, every tilt of his head had been a message, a life-saving sign, a quiet act of care she had nearly overlooked. Tears welled in her eyes, but they were not of sadness, they were of awe, gratitude, and deep, unspoken understanding. She reached down, brushing a tuft of fur from his head. You've been saving me all along," she whispered softly. He blinked slowly, calm, steady, affirming in his quiet, unspoken way. The afternoon sun spilled into the garden as they walked slowly among the flowers. Each step felt weighted with meaning, every gesture imbued with connection. The dog paused under a sunlit tree, sniffing the air, then looked back, tail flicking, ears alert, waiting for her recognition. Emma knelt beside him, tracing her hand along his fur. "You've taught me so much, more than I could have imagined," she murmured. He rested his head lightly against her hand, eyes steady, unwavering, a small heartbeat of presence, quiet yet profound. By evening, golden lamplight filled the living room, shadows stretched long across the floor, calm, soft, steady. Emma sat on the couch, notebook in hand, reflecting on the past days, the subtle guidance, the gentle nudges, the life-changing presence she had been given. The dog curled at her feet, small chest rising and falling in steady rhythm, a quiet heartbeat echoing her own. She realized then that his presence had not been accidental, not random, not merely comforting. It had been purposeful, deliberate, loving, a quiet force guiding her toward awareness, care, life. She whispered softly, brushing her fingers along his ears, "You're more than a dog, more than a companion, you're my guardian, my teacher, my friend." He blinked slowly, calm, steady, acknowledging her words without needing to speak. Night settled softly across the house, warm lamplight spilling across the walls, shadows stretching long and gentle. Emma prepared for bed, letting him curl beside her once more. The quiet intimacy of the room, the soft rhythm of his breathing, the subtle weight of his presence, filled her with warmth, safety, and gratitude. And in that moment, she understood fully, clearly. The heart-touching truth, the dog she had thought needed rescuing, had been quietly, profoundly rescuing her. As she drifted to sleep, golden light fading outside, she whispered into the quiet night, "Thank you, for seeing me, for guiding me, for being here." The dog's steady breathing, small and deliberate, was the final affirmation she needed. A reminder that love, care, and intuition could speak louder than words. And that the quietest creatures often carried the greatest wisdom. In the warm, soft darkness, their bond shimmered, subtle, profound, unspoken, a connection neither of them would ever forget. The morning sun rose slowly, spilling soft amber light across the living room floor. Emma stirred her coffee, eyes drifting to the dog curled at the rug. He stretched, small paws reaching forward, tail low, steady, ears alert, eyes warm and calm. There was no urgency today, only quiet presence, shared comfort, and a deep, unspoken understanding. Over the past days, their bond had grown into something steady, profound, a connection that needed no words, only trust, awareness, and gentle companionship. The dog had guided her, protected her, shown her the unseen, taught her the quiet art of noticing, caring, and living fully. Emma rose, letting the dog pad beside her, soft paws on the wooden floor, eyes flicking toward her, attentive, focused, waiting. She walked to the garden slowly, feeling the warm sunlight on her face, noticing the small beauty in the world, petals glistening with morning dew, the faint scent of jasmine in the air. The dog paused often, sniffing, listening, looking back to ensure she was following, and she did, trusting, observing, appreciating the rhythm of life he revealed. They spent the morning exploring the familiar garden, small nudges guiding her attention, soft gestures reminding her of what mattered, the warmth of the sun, the gentle sway of flowers, the rhythm of breath, the comfort of presence. Each step together was a lesson in trust, patience, and connection. Emma realized, fully now, that she had never truly been alone, not in the days before him, not in the quiet moments when he had quietly guided her, not in the nights when his steady breathing had anchored her heart. By afternoon, they rested on the porch, sunlight spilling over the railing, dust motes dancing in the warm air. The dog lay beside her, head resting lightly against her leg, eyes calm, serene, small breaths rising and falling in perfect rhythm. Emma ran her fingers through his fur, a soft, lingering gesture, feeling the warmth, the heartbeat, the quiet life that had changed hers forever. "Do you know," she whispered softly, "how much you've changed me?" He blinked slowly, ears flicking, eyes bright, steady. She smiled through a gentle tear. "I thought I was rescuing you, but it turns out, you rescued me." Evening fell, warm amber light spilling across the living room, shadows stretching long and soft, quiet, gentle, healing. Emma prepared for bed, letting the dog curl beside her once more, the familiar rhythm of his breathing comforting, grounding, alive. She lay down, feeling the steady warmth of his presence, the quiet heartbeat at her feet, the invisible, unspoken bond that had grown stronger with every small gesture, every nudge, every moment of shared stillness. She realized that their lives were now intertwined in a way that could not be undone, a connection that transcended words, quiet, subtle, yet undeniably profound. The dog shifted slightly, pressing his head lightly against her hand, a small, comforting gesture, a reminder of the trust, love, and care that had grown between them. Emma closed her eyes, letting the warmth fill her chest, letting the quiet peace settle over her, letting the gentle weight of their bond cradle her heart. Outside, the world carried on, wind in the trees, distant birdsong, the soft hum of evening life. Inside, all was calm, safe, warm, a haven of trust, presence, and gentle companionship. Emma whispered softly, into the quiet night, "You've been my teacher, my guardian, my friend, and I will never forget you." The dog blinked slowly, small tail brushing against the floor, eyes steady, aware, loving. It was a perfect, quiet moment, one of healing, closure, and deep, heartfelt gratitude. For in this fragile, scrappy, small creature, she had found something greater than companionship. She had found trust, awareness, subtle guidance, and the pure, gentle love that could quietly change a life. And as sleep gently claimed her, golden lamplight fading outside, she felt it fully. Life was better, brighter, deeper, because of him. Her heart was lighter, her mind calmer, her soul fuller, and the small dog at her feet had made it so. In the quiet, warm night, their bond shimmered, soft, profound, unspoken, an enduring testament to love, intuition, and the quiet ways in which life can save us when we least expect it. And for Emma, and for the small scrappy dog she had adopted, there would be many mornings, many quiet walks, many shared discoveries ahead, a lifetime of gentle guidance, healing, and heart-touching companionship. They were home, together, finally.